able to trust us and rely on us, and our enemies should fear us.
Right.
And that is something that we haven't been feeling for the last 8 years.
Whether Donald Trump excuse me, does what he has promised to do will in part depend on us.
That's right. Okay.
Are we going to hold him accountable for it? And will he, in fact, engage people who are faithful to this vision? I have to tell you, so far, so good.
Yep.
I think that by and large, it's certainly in the space that would be directly relevant to this national security focus. The appointments have been very much in keeping with people who understand the sorts of things I think each of us have talked about here and are as concerned about it as we are. So with the right guidance and the right continuing support from the American people and the right subordinates, I think there's a good chance. Yes, ma'am.
I definitely agree with Frank's remarks on this. I think that you also have at least 5 candidates here on this table. If he wants to recruit someone. No, but seriously, I hear on the day of elections, I was in London and then in Zurich, and I met with several people that day, all non-US citizens and non-related to the US, but they were so scared of what's going on. I said, you're scared of what's going on in the States? Look what's going on here.
Right.
You should be scared about what's happening in your own country. Why are you scared about Donald Trump? Because the media puts so much fear into people about this crazy person who's might become president that they don't even realize that there is a very good chance that he might even be one of the best presidents ever. So let's hope and pray that he's going to succeed.
Yes, I can. Daniel mentioned it, I mentioned Joel Al-Sisi. I know him, I particularly know his staff, and I know what they're doing internally in the country to try to bring back their economy, which was 20% of their GNP, and they're working very hard on it. I just want to say, Daniel, he's got a very good staff. They're very smart, the Chamber of Commerce over there. I look at the General Al-Sisi, because of the Suez Canal, the Sinai, Libya, Somalia, is a very important relationship to further develop and strengthen. And if Al-Sisi needs strengthening in that regard and support, we need to give it to him. King Abdullah also has been there. The amount of refugees that have come into Jordan is incredible. We do have a joint operations center over there now in Jordan. I think King Abdullah needs, again, that kind of support from us, which he basically has not received to the degree necessary. And Turkey's a whole different situation. Turkey was rather upset with me when I went into Syria, and they categorized me as a very dangerous man. It's true. And then, I'll get these tied. I don't know how Frank knows that. I don't know why he would say that they're such good friends. But when ISIS put a hit out on me, by a Chechnyan, by the way, I put a hit out on him, and he went to Allah. It's important to know who your enemies are and your friends. So the point is that we do have some things that we can develop. As far as Syria, there's some things working there positively. I can't go into today, but certainly when we look at, there are certain partners we can deal with the future of Syria. I think strengthening some of the ties in northern Lebanon, Beirut, we've got some very potential. So there's some partners out there that we really haven't engendered to a great degree. Now, as far as Europeans, my God, I don't know where that's going to go. I don't think anybody does. But certainly the British SAS troops, I mean, there's certain, even a lot of the French military are very good, would like to do some things. So I think there's some rearrangements here. And I agree with Donald Trump, we told him this, NATO has got to be reformed or done away with.
That's right.
They no operational plans that I know of to take out ISIS.
No.
They're sending a battalion over to the Ukraine and other places to try to scare Putin. Give me a break. So that kind of an organization exists. But what the hell do they do other than gigantic bureaucracy out of Brussels? So that's what we're talking about, the realignment. So people say, well, Trump was crazy for saying it, but he was right for us who know NATO. So there's some organization relationships there that I think further develop. Daniel, I'm not sure about Saudi Arabia, where they're going to come down, but there may be some nurturing there. King Al Faisal was in Paris with us a few months ago in July. He gave a great talk. He's the head of the intelligence. So there's some nurturing there. Qatar, they continue to support ISIS and flow money through, just like the Chinese now are going to continue to flow money into Iran. That may be their lifeline, I'm not sure yet, but there's some things going on with China and Iran right now. So that's where we have to look at this chessboard that we've laid out here today and figure out what those new arrangements should be. And we have to have new arrangements, so that's all. We thought it's a great question and one we have to really consider. I met in Paris with Ambassador Bogdanov. I met in the Russian embassy in Paris. Bogdanov is Putin's top guy for the Middle East, Syria, now North Africa. I met with the gentleman at the Russian embassy 2 months ago here. The administration, the Obama administration, has not reached back to them at all. The Russians are different today when you meet them. They're not the old KGB, as what you might think. They're very smart, they're intelligent, they deal with common sense, they have economic and energy interest in the oil fields in Syria and Iraq. They are amenable, by the way, to have Assad retire. Okay? And we do have a group of leaders who defected from the Assad regime who are standing by to come in and form an interim government if the Russians will give them a Dachau outside of Moscow or Black Sea. Make them a deal they can't refuse. That's what the hell I would do with Assad and the Russians. All I can say is we will not get anywhere without at least engaging them of some solutions, because they sure as hell would like to get out of war fighting over there. The Assad armed forces have been bombing, dropping, as well as the Russian forces, primarily going because the Russians have not been able to determine who in the hell the enemy is on the ground. They do call them rebels, they call them all opposition. You got al-Nusra, you got Kurds, you got the Free Syrian Army. And so the Russians offered the commanders in Aleppo a free pass if they would come in and stop fighting. But nobody responded to the Russians at that time. Now, this is coming from the Russians, not me, this is what they were telling me. So they couldn't find anybody to end the hostilities. So the war goes on over there. I think General Flynn knows this very well as I do, that we will have to work with them in some capacity. Verify, okay, exactly what's happening. But they are amenable, because their goal over there is really not continued war. They had enough of that in Afghanistan, as you know. But it's primarily economic and energy driven. So somehow you've got to find something to work that and work it in the best interest of the Middle East.
You're right.
Going to military analysts or analysis, or hear from Dr. Pipes or our friend Frank Gaffney?
I want both of them.
You want both?
What's it all?
Well, let me take it from a perspective of the military. The Russians are based out of Tartus and Latakia now, as you know. A fairly large naval base there. They just brought in one of their fleets, as you know, down through the Med. The Russians are there to stay, to see things out, from my understanding. And that's why the base is there. Targeting again for that energy pipeline to come across from Turkey, across into the Mediterranean, probably at Tartus, somewhere in that area. The opposition forces which were basically, first was from the Free Syrian Army under Colonel Riyad and about 40 generals that were based and operated out of Antakya in southern Turkey. That was their main base, where they crossed in and so on. There really wasn't Al-Qaeda when I was over there. They had a couple checkpoints with the black flags, but Al-Qaeda just had started to come in, and they were really foreigners more than Syrians. And of course, you know, that sort of evolved into ISIS. So the Free Syrian Army started working a little bit with al-Nusra, only because they were both against the Assad government. But I can tell you that if there was a new interim government, al-Nusra was going to go away, and Hezbollah, because they will be defeated over there. The Iranians are a whole different situation, but they've lost a lot of people, the RGC. The Iranians aren't very good fighters, by the way, as Ali Raisa can tell you. They get their butt kicked every time they go out and try anything. So from a military standpoint, Turkey is really the military power over there on the north side. And what's the border, 950 kilometers or something, with Syria and Turkey? That's something like that. But again, if you go back to the end game there, who you have to deal with to solve things, definitely Turkey's in on the deal, Russia's in on the deal. Some of the expatriates from Syria have to work hard at being able to bring some kind of interim government there, if Russia will ask and have Assad step aside and retire. There are people who come in, they're very good Syrians, by the way, so that's just one perspective.
The modern Middle East was in large part created 100 years ago in 1916 with the signing between the French, British, and Russians of the Sykes-Picot became known as Sykes-Picot Agreement, which among other things divided up the Levant into Syria and Iraq, as we now know them. And particularly in the post-World War II era, these became totalitarian states under the Assad dynasty and under Saddam Hussein, ferociously aggressive, completely closed. And then what happened in the last 15 years, it both cracked up. And they cracked up in rather strikingly similar fashion. And each of them has an Iranian-oriented, Shiite sort of regime in the capital city of Baghdad and Damascus. Each of them has a main insurgency of Sunni Arabs. And each of them has a Kurdish population that wants nothing to do with the Arabic speakers. Wants to go off on its own or join with other Kurds in the north. And in remarkable parallel, this is what we now have in front of us. I expect that what we see is what we will have for some time to come. That is to say, these states will not be reconstituted as wholes, that no one faction will defeat the others. The Kurds will manage to stay apart, and the Sunni and Shia Arabic speakers will be basically in a stalemate. So I don't think we're going to have much change. There'll be internal changes, whether ISIS is dominant or not. I think not. It's too wildly unstrategic to survive. But the Sunni rebel areas will have been defined now for some years in Syria, and I think will roughly continue as they are today.
I think my views are rather more aligned with Daniel's than with my friend Paul Vallely's on this. I'm sort of a view with Maury. I mean, this is the old Cold Warrior in me, but I have a very hard time believing that Putin is interested in aligning himself with us in Syria or any place. I think his sort of vendetta against the United States is all-consuming. And while there are Russians who are adept, and my experience with the KGB was they were pretty adept in the day too, Paul. But if they're adept at making it sound as though they're reasonable and could find some sort of accommodation with us on their terms, that's pretty much the way it's going to be, I think, in Syria and possibly Ukraine and who knows where all else. for the foreseeable future. Now, if in fact there is a new United States presence, military capability, perceived resolve, leadership, support from the American people for protecting our interests and allies, notably Israel, maybe the Kurds, then it might be that you achieve modus vivendi, modi vivendi, I guess it is, with Putin or others, but I don't see that in the cards at the moment. And I have to say that the character of these Islamic supremacists, whether they're of the Sunni stripe or the Shiite stripe, makes me rather disinterested in helping either of them. Daniel sort of put the Kissingerian thought in the Iran-Iraq war in his own terms, but it was, hoping they both will lose. Seems to me to be more of a course of action consistent with our interests than trying to help either of them win.
The General would like to make one remark about what's going on our college campuses, and then Daniel will make one remark about the elections in France.
Yeah, I meant to mention this. This is absolutely critical of what's going to go on in the future, and that's our young people. We've got to do something about the campuses, okay? And we have one gay Jew out of London who's tearing up our campuses named Milo. And Daniel and I met Milo a couple weeks ago in West Palm Beach.
I know Milo.
With his black boyfriend. He only dates black guys. This guy's unbelievable. He's been in West Virginia, but he's tearing up, or he's taking the conservative, pro-Israel, everything to the campuses.
Sure is.
And he has 2 Navy SEALs that go with him.
Yes.
All right? This guy's unbelievable. If you haven't seen him on YouTube, you've got to watch Milo in action.
My daughter.
And he was sitting at the same table with General Flynn.
Yep.
But he calls Trump Daddy. When I talk to Daddy.
No, he didn't.
Did I do that all right? Anyhow, quite an experience. But let's focus too, Sarah, getting stuff out. The campuses are critical because of the anti-Semitism, the control and the money that's gone into the Islamic support on our campuses is absolutely unreal how they've infiltrated. Charlie Kirk from Turning Point's doing a great job out there. James O'Keefe's doing a great job. So these are some young people, including Milo, who are just out there doing great things on the campuses. I just wanted to bring that up because I forgot it in my earlier remarks.
I'd like to say a couple words about the elections in France and Hungary and Austria that just took place in the last 2 weeks, which seem to me enormous in their implications. What happened in France was that for the first time ever, a legacy party, one of the main 2 parties now called Republicans, the center-right party, adopted the outlook of the insurgent party, the anti-immigrant, anti-Islamic party, anti-EU party as well. The dark horse, no one expected to do better than third, came out wildly ahead in the first round, triumphed in the second to 66 or 34%. François Fillon is the name of the candidate. And he is in all likelihood going to become president of France next year. There's not much between him and the presidency. This is remarkable. This has never happened before. And if it does happen in France, it's likely to be replicated elsewhere as center-right parties leave their old, tired ways and adopt the new ways of the insurgent parties. The second item of note is in Austria, where you may recall in April there was a first round in which the insurgent Freedom Party, Norbert Hofer, lost by a hair, and now he lost by a few hairs. The important thing is not whether you got 49 or 48 or 50%, but that for the first time ever, again, ever, an insurgent party, there are so many across Europe, got roughly half the vote. There's been a consensus that these insurgent parties can't get more than a third. 25, 30, maybe 33%, but not more. Here he got close to half. So what you see is 2 options for Europe. my view. One is that the legacy parties pick up on the message of the insurgent parties and ride it to power. Or they don't, in which case the insurgent parties finally get their 51% and dominate. Someone like the builders in the Netherlands could conceivably, if no one steals his thunder, go on to be prime minister. So it's been fascinating to watch just in November, well, the last few weeks, these two dramatic instances of what the future will look like. And finally, what's going to drive it are two things. One, are the legacy conservative parties going to adopt these messages? And secondly, are the jihadis going to engage in violence? It was no accident that all this happened in France following all these major attacks. Charlie Hebdo, Hyper Cacher, Bataclan, Nice, and so forth. It's really moving. It's not static at all. Keep on.
Well, it seems like the people are speaking. They've spoken on the other side of the Atlantic, and they've spoken here in the United States in the last elections. Some of the good things that we could take from this panel is that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I think, is no longer regarded as the linchpin to solve everything that's going on within the Middle East. And I think that people are beginning to get a little bit wiser to the intentions of both Sunni and Shia jihadists and